Today's discussion will center on Henrik Ibsen and his seminal play, A Dollhouse, which was performed in 1879 in Copenhagen. A Dollhouse offers a visceral look into the affairs of a fairly typical 19th century middle-class family in Norway. The setting is Christmas time. Torvald and Nora Helmer are preparing to celebrate the holidays, buying presents, decorating trees, and attending costume parties. But the tone of the play suddenly shifts from jovial to serious when Nora becomes involved in a scandal that will shake the foundation of this family and threaten their picturesque happiness. In a face-to-face class, I usually look forward to teaching A Dollhouse because students can get engaged in the reading. We usually delegate roles and read the play in class. While I regret that we cannot arrange to have this done this semester, I think A Dollhouse still stands up on its own merit, and after reading it, I think you'll agree. It's one of those plays that has a tendency to draw the reader in. A Dollhouse features a female lead character, Nora, who is at home making preparations for the holidays. Her husband Torvald has just gotten a promotion at work, and she notes that his increased salary will allow them to be more prodigal with their holiday spending. This earns Nora an earful from Torvald, who calls her a spendthrift and lectures her on the importance of financial independence and debt-free living. Here in Act 1, we can clearly see well-defined family roles at play. Torvald is the provider of the family, but in his rebuke of Nora, he also asserts himself as the rational half, while Nora acts as his more emotional foil. Ibsen is drawing us into this typical 19th century family dynamic because he intends to show us that it's all an illusion. Things seem typical enough early on, but as the plot develops, we learn that Nora has been hiding a secret from her husband. Apparently, Torvald had grown very sick some years back, and Nora had to procure funds fraudulently to pay for his treatment. The treatment is a success, and Torvald recovers from his illness, but Nora is left with all the financial and emotional debt that accrues when one borrows money and lies about it. Nora's situation introduces us to one of the great ironies in A Dollhouse. You see, Torvald is quite sure in his masculine chest-pounding that he's capable of bearing all responsibilities on his shoulders. After all, in Act 2, he boasts of his strength and courage and tells Nora, "I am man enough to take everything upon myself." When the disgraced ex-banker Krogstad threatens to make the details of Nora's fraud public, she's hopeful that Torvald will honor his vow to take everything upon himself, and she's ever so certain that this will be the moment that Torvald proves his love for her. However, this doesn't come to pass, and the realization that Torvald is not the man she imagined him to be sets up the dramatic conclusion where Nora is forced to decide between her freedom or her family. The Helmers have a standoff, and ultimately the roles have flipped. Torvald, who painted himself as rationalistic and composed in Act 1, comes off as a ranting lunatic in the final scene, and Nora is now decisive, cool, and resolute in her stance. Nora had been Torvald's doll, who dressed up and danced for him, and who performed for him like a wind-up toy. These symbols of dolls and dollhouses and playthings are truly intentional on Ibsen's part. But now she holds the power and can strike Torvald down. The final scene, with Nora leaving and slamming the door behind her, is one of the most powerful scenes in modern theater. It was also one of the most controversial ones. For the most part, A Dollhouse helped to bring Ibsen worldwide renown. Translations were immediately disseminated through Europe and received a mixture of praise and censure. Ibsen was championed by Irish playwright Bernard Shaw, who claimed that A Dollhouse had conquered Europe, and Ibsen received recognition from English actors like Elizabeth Robbins. But there are critics in England who were turned off by Ibsen's provincial otherness. He was simply too different. One reviewer said, "Ibsen, as far as I can see, is a crazy, cranky being who has derived his knowledge of life from some half-civilized Norwegian village. He sees filth in his Norway society and imagines that all the world is filthy as well." In Germany, too, Ibsen ran across some opposition. To satisfy the demands of a prominent actor, Ibsen was forced to rewrite the ending of A Dollhouse. Instead of the shocking but iconic scene where Nora slams the door on Torvald, German audiences would have gotten this.
Where we could make a real marriage out of our lives together. Goodbye.
Go then, but first you shall see your children for the last time.
Let me go! I will not see them. I cannot.
You shall see them. Look, there they are, asleep, peaceful and carefree. Tomorrow when they wake up and call for their mother, they will be motherless.
Motherless.
as you once were.
Motherless. Oh, this is a sin against myself, but I cannot leave them.
Nora.
So it's safe to say that A Dollhouse, with its forward-thinking plot and characters, was as likely to attract admiration in its time as criticism. Whichever way you look at it, though, I don't think anyone would deny that it utterly transformed theater. You see, Ibsen was at the center of a great revolution in drama. In the 19th century, we start to see innovations to stagecraft, lighting, and set design. One of those innovations being the box set, which started gaining popularity in Ibsen's lifetime. It's a set designed to enhance the realism of the things on stage, or what we call the mise en scène. With its 3 interior walls, a box set gives the illusion of a closed environment, and it was the perfect set to portray the living room of the Helmers in A Dollhouse. Various innovations in lighting were also occurring at this time. Gas lighting became prominent in the early 1800s, enabling playhouses to light their productions more evenly and cheaply. The limelight was recently invented too, which served as a way to spotlight particular stage elements, like a character delivering a monologue. Alongside these innovations, theatrical sensibilities changed as well. Costumes, which had been more contemporary in melodramas, were now period appropriate, and actors wore outfits that reflected the time period in which the play took place. We are, in fact, beginning to see the formation of a new movement in theater called Naturalism, and Ibsen is at the forefront of it. He is joined by contemporaries like Émile Zola, who wrote that there should be no more abstract characters in books, no more lying inventions, no more of the absolute, but real characters, the true history of each one, the story of daily life. Ibsen achieves this vision with naturalistic dialogue, abandoning the conventions of verse for prose. The result is a script that flows like a conversation between 2 regular people. It was extraordinary because it wasn't extraordinary. Where his predecessors wrote sensational melodramas with characters representing some stereotype or another, Ibsen focused on the mundane with ordinary dialogue and set design. There are no exotic locations or grandiose larger-than-life set designs. In A Dollhouse, the mise en scène is made up of a solitary Christmas tree and some furniture. It's a room furnished, as Ibsen says, tastefully but not extravagantly. And with these words, we can start to imagine who the Helmers are and how they are. And how they are reminds us of another important fact about naturalism, its great sociopolitical awareness. Ibsen is sometimes credited as being one of the first feminist playwrights in history because of his portrayal of Nora as a sympathetic character. She is a strong-willed woman who wishes only to find her own way in the world. She questions the norms and morals of her time, dismisses the patriarchal rationalism of Torvald and Krogstad, and even denies Torvald's appeals to her religion. She is reborn through fire at the end of A Dollhouse, figuratively speaking, and will go on to experience the world for herself for a first time. These sentiments were powerful in Ibsen's time, as they are now, because they called into question the very core of the traditional family structure. Yet, for all his championing of Nora, Ibsen was careful not to wear the title feminist in his time period. Upon his reception at a Women's Rights League banquet in 1898, Ibsen said, "I must disclaim the honor of having consciously worked for the women's rights movement. I am not even quite clear as to just what this women's rights movement really is. To me, it has seemed a problem of mankind in general." Indeed, A Dollhouse for Ibsen was not an indictment of men per se, but of the system. Torvald is more of a symptom than he is a cause. This is because naturalism as an art form is about examining the institutions in society that create inequality and injustice, not just for women, but for the poor, and for the downtrodden and the disenfranchised. Indeed, the naturalists like Ibsen carried a reputation for being somewhat grim, somewhat pessimistic. But by slamming the door on her previous life, Nora opens the door to another one. And I think this is the point that makes A Dollhouse so timeless. The play has been depicted many times in theater as well as film and on TV. And I think it's a testament to Ibsen himself that his message translates so well across generations. Yes, even today, women are still struggling to find their voice and their independence. Many are unhappy and feel trapped. Nora is possibly the hope that a better life awaits if she just takes her first step. Some doors will need to be slammed, some ties cut, but at least there's a promise of something better on the other side. And I think with that, I'm going to wrap up our discussion on A Dollhouse. I really hope you like it as much as I do. Until next time, thank you for watching and enjoy the readings.